Amen.
Amen.
May the words that are heard be thine and not mine. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
While channel surfing the other day, I came upon a rerun of the show Extreme Makeover Home Edition with the hunky Ty Pennington. Now, I remember watching it somewhat consistently a few years ago, but for one reason or another, not so much anymore. The premise is quite appealing, actually. A family is chosen via an untold process of selection, and their lives will soon be changed, transformed completely, and not in an extensive amount of time either. The family is whisked away to a fun vacation spot for a week or so, and while away, their house is literally torn down, and a new, shinier, bigger, modern one is constructed in its place, complete with all the contemporary gadgets and gizmos and upgrades consistent for the time. Every room has a theme or association to one or all those living in it, and the once deplorable accommodations are replaced with now the envy of the neighborhood. The climactic moment is when the glistening state-of-art home is revealed to the family. They are overwhelmed with emotion and appreciation, almost everyone crying, including me, Lily, and Allie. It's feel-good television for sure. With their new homes comes a brand new and positive frame of mind. Where's he going with this? Well, today's Old Testament lesson tells us of a new house for God and the righteous remnant after they return from Babylonian exile. This era in Jewish history is referenced as Second Temple Judaism. The moniker, a reference to the era beginning with the rebuilding of the temple after the invasion and subsequent destruction of everything, pretty much, by the Babylonians. Haggai is the resident prophet of the time, and as God's mouthpiece, instructs Israel how to proceed. Nehemiah served similarly during the rebuilding of the wall surrounding Jerusalem, literally occurring under guarded arm or armed guards because of the constant threat of raids by the surrounding nations. Well, God's house would be constructed, equal to and greater than its former glory, which was Solomon's temple, built during the monarchy period of Judaism. David wanted to build that one, but God wasn't having it after his shenanigans with Bathsheba. So anyway, Haggai was encouraging, instructing Zerubbabel and Jehozadak, those are tough words to say, that God's new house would oversee God's people and God's city once more. Now, this was a huge deal. This is a lot bigger than just a capital funds campaign down at the Baptist church. The Jews were a people of a temple, similarly to the way Christians are people of a book. Now, that's the Bible, not the Book of Common Prayer. The temple was a major source of national pride and symbolic of the presence of God. It was a big deal. Remember, Hebrew belief was that God literally would come down and rest God's feet on the mercy seat, seated and situated in the inner sanctum known as the Holy of Holies, right there in the temple. We sang about it earlier, seated between the cherubim. Well, God's actual presence. Like I said, this was a big deal. Yet it was not an undertaking approached lightly. The timing and the ethos and the mindset had to be right or the endeavor would fail. So how do you prepare? How do you get yourself right so that you can build a house for God? First, the previous house must needed to be torn down. You see, the first temple was destroyed as part of Israel's punishment for straying from God's will. Inauthentic worship and empty rituals defiled God's house. It had to go. God would not return to a soiled home, and Babylon would be an instrument of their discipline. It reminds me of my first year in Sewanee, when there was an intentional practice of tearing down your theological construct during the first year of seminary. Now, it would be rebuilt. And some of what was torn down originally would be used in that reconstruction. But it would not be limited just to your heritage. There would be discovery of the new. And that was built in there as well, so that you had your own personal theological construct, one that you believed and understood. It's a very difficult process. For Israel, this tearing down of the temple was a big deal. Like I said earlier, they were so tied to that building. It was a point of national pride. First step was the old house had to be torn down. Next, notice that building God's house required a change in thinking. If the first step was literal and physical, then the second was analogous and mostly spiritual. Israel was spiritually bankrupt. Their inner houses had to go as well. Interesting that if you fast forward a few hundred years to the gospel era of the New Testament, you find the Jews in a similar spiritual deficit as they were before they went to Babylon. Today, once again, Jewish religious types, this time the Sadducees, are taking aim at Jesus. You see, they were the temple priests, ironically enough. They were strict and literal regarding Torah. They were sort of the original fundamentalists. Richard Rohr says that a literal read on anything is the shallowest attempt to understand the same. Christian Wyman says that the problem with absolutism is that we build these massive mounds of absolutes so we can get up at the top and stake our banner, only to find that there's nowhere to go but down. The moment that one of those absolutes becomes shaky or maybe removed, then the whole construct comes falling down. It crumbles down. Well, the Sadducees wanted to catch Jesus off guard with a ridiculous question about afterlife. Important note here, the Sadducees didn't believe in afterlife. It was a setup because it wasn't spelled out in plain English, Hebrew, in the Bible, Torah. Actually, resurrection was more of a Pharisaic development. In a lot of ways, the Pharisees were in agreement with Jesus' new blueprints. They were open to commentary like the Mishnah and the Talmud and the Midrash. Anyway, Jesus basically told the Sadducees that they needed to open their minds to a new way of thinking. It reminds me of being in high school. And our coaches, maybe after a particularly bad showing in a game, would run our tails off until the point that they said we would have an attitude adjustment. It's interesting that not long after this gospel period, the second temple would be destroyed also. And the Jews would need another change of heart, very similar to what happened to their ancestors in Babylon. The last step of the process of preparation is the establishment of a firm foundation. It's building your house on stone and not on sand. Our reading in Thessalonians speaks of a bedrock of faith that would endure the persecution that the early church faced. The author referred to trying times as means of sanctification. It's like it's a curing concept. Richard Rohr refers to those as necessary evils. The curing process then helps create solid footing on which our faith then can be built. Israel in Haggai's day realized these three steps, and they rebuilt a grand abode for God. It would last until 70 CE, destroyed by the Romans that time. It would be the end of the Sadducees. No temple priests. The Jews have not rebuilt their beloved place of worship. It's a little bit tricky. Jerusalem is a divided town. divided city between Jews and Muslims and Christians. However, the temple is being reconstructed, even now, by another source. After demolition of the old, a change in thinking, and the formation of a solid foundation due to the incarnate Jesus Christ, the Spirit of God is housed in what is a new container. It's you. Amen.